Hey, how's it going? Today I'm talking about finding a training plan that works for you. This is Running to the Castle, a podcast for injury-prone Run Disney runners on a journey to running magical miles. Join me, Dr. Allie, as I share the secrets I've gathered as a runner, doctor of physical therapy, and coach. You'll learn the exact ways I get my clients to the castle strong without feeling broken or held together with KT tape as they cross the finish line. Okay, so obviously, if you're doing Run Disney races, you need to find a training plan that works for you so that you can follow it, so that you can successfully cross the finish line without feeling broken, especially if you are injured or prone to injury, or you didn't complete a race last year because you had a pain that limited you from either getting to the start line, or you got to the start line, but you did not get to the finish line. So obviously you need a training plan to follow. And there are the popular ones. There are the ones that you find on the Run Disney website with Jeff Galloway and Hal Higdon's programs that you can just Google. Those are the most common ones for Run Disney I see, because they have the designated, a Dopey, a Goofy, the Wine and Dine challenge and things like that. But for an injury-prone runner or somebody who's struggled with injuries in the past, those plans, unfortunately, just don't work well for you. And it's because of how they're designed, specifically with the long run in mind, but just in general. So I'll talk about Hal Higdon's first. The training plans with Hal Higdon tend to run too many days for what an injury-prone runner, in my opinion, should be running. He typically has people doing a half marathon or longer are running 4 days a week. I think that's too many for a half marathon. It's also too many for 5K, 10K, and 10 miler. But I haven't really looked at his plans for those distances, the 5K, 10K, and 10 miler. For somebody who's running a marathon or more, at some point you should be running 4 days a week. But not always, especially if you're injury prone. And then Jeff Galloway, he has you running 3 days a week, which is great. I love that aspect. For the most part, for half marathon and for 10 milers, once you get into the marathon and higher, so the Dopey and Goofy, he does have you running 4 days, some weeks, which is fine. I agree with that. But the biggest thing is that the long run for Jeff Galloway, it increases too much too fast. And Hal Higdon, his plans, not only do the long run increase too much, but the weekly runs often, not always, but often also increase. And so these increases being too much, meaning it's more than 10 to 15%. So you may have heard the 10% rule. That means running no more than 10% each week. And it's about 10%. If you look at it, it's between 10 and 15%. Because statistically, that is a significant amount more to run each week, but not so significant that it causes problems. If you do 20% or more, then it ends up creating overuse injuries and you're training too much. And so Jeff Galloway's plans typically increase 1 to 2 miles more every week. And Hal Higdon's, it's about the same. Plus, during the week, he has changes. Now, Jeff Galloway, he sticks with 30 or 45-minute runs depending on the distance you're running. And so those staying the same is wonderful. That's really nice. And then Hal Higdon, like I said, it can change depending on the race distance. So those types of plans, training plans, just don't work well for somebody who's injured or prone to injury or coming back to running after an injury. Now, if you're coming back to running after an injury, you have to start low and slow. So low mileage, and I'm talking like half a mile. We're not talking 5K, we're talking half a mile, about definitely less than 1 mile. Thinking back, one of my clients who did Dopey 2023 with knee pain, we met in May of 2023, so after that Dopey, and I had her start from ground zero, from the beginning. And based on my testing, the way I have people test out how far they should go on their first run, I remember distinctly it was 0.66 miles that she should do. And she was floored. She's like, oh my God, I would have thought to do 2 to 3 miles, like a 5K. And I was like, nope, too much. And so even if you're not increasing by more than 10% each week, if you start off too much with that 2 or 3 miles, that 5K distance, you're already starting too far. So you have to start really low. All of my specific RunDisney designated training plans start you at a 5K, but I also have a 0 to 5K training plan. And my generic one, I believe, starts at 0.5 miles. And if somebody is working with me directly and can't do a 5K without pain yet, we start it off by doing a test so that we know exactly how far you can start off. Because if you can start off further than 0.5 miles, then of course I'm going to have you start off further than 0.5 miles. We don't need to hold us back just to hold us back. We can start at a higher amount, at 0.66 or 0.75 or 0.8 or a whole mile, something like that. And so then you increase by 10% each week. And what that looks like is moving the decimal place over. So if you start off, your long run is a 5K because you can actually run a 5K without pain, then your next distance is no more than 3.4 something miles, or 3.5 something miles if we go up to that 15%. That's what the next distance is. It's not the next one being 4 miles or 4.5 miles or 5 miles. That's way too much. And so that's the biggest mistake I find RunDisney runners who are injury prone make. And it's no fault of their own, because they just don't know. These are what the training plans say. So you think, oh, well, this is what the training plan says. All of these other people have used it. It must work. Well, it works for people who aren't prone to injury or aren't coming back from an injury. For somebody who is prone to injury or coming back from an injury, they need to start off with less mileage increases. And so gearing up to train that way needs a little bit of planning. So you need 14 to 16 weeks to run a half marathon, or the challenge distances that include the half marathon. So the 10K and half marathon, like Chills and Thrills, for example, which is our next one coming up in September at Disneyland. The training plan I have is 14 weeks. So it starts June 1st or 2nd, June 2nd, because that's the Sunday, and takes you all the way to race week and beyond. I actually include 2 weeks after race week for what to do so that you can recover quickly. And you have exactly 3 runs that week, 2 cross training days, also incorporating strength training on your run or cross training days. You have 2 rest days. And then of course you're also stretching. You're doing the recovery techniques like getting a regular massage, taking hot Epsom salt baths, or doing ice baths, using ice or heat packs, foam rolling, using your massage gun, getting professional massages. I think I already said that. You're doing all of those things. You're fueling during your long runs, all of those things. So these are the types of things to look for in a training plan when you are prone to injuries. You need to make sure that the training plan doesn't increase more than 10%. I really talked about that a lot in this episode because it's the number one thing that doesn't happen on most training plans. You also want to include cross training days and rest days and strength training, and the majority of plans out there also include all of those things. So that's why I didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about it today, because they're already on the training plans. And then things that might not be on the training plan are your your fueling, what you should be doing for fueling and what you should be doing for recovery. But all of those things make up a successful training plan for somebody who wants to cross the finish line without feeling broken. If you're listening to this when this episode drops, I invite you to check out the training plans I have on my website. Check the description for the link. I will make sure that is in there. You can choose your race weekend, then the race distance. And if you're doing multiple race weekends, I do have some of those plans up on the website, the ones that have been asked for. If it's not up there, go ahead and send me a DM on Instagram, runDisneyDPT, and I will make sure that I get you the multi-race weekend training plan so you have it all right there in one PDF. As always, thanks so much for listening. That's all for now. Talk to you soon.